Well, I had originally planned to discuss this topic when I laid out my video outline for the month. Little did I realize just how pertinent it would become. So, us versus them. What is it? Well, it's tribalism. The concept of us versus them is when two groups of opposing viewpoints form and become incredibly polarizing in their views. Those in this mentality will come to see all people as either on their side, the us, against everyone else, the them. What makes this mentality so dangerous is that it leads to both sides dehumanizing the other. After all, they're against us, so anything bad that happens to them can only be good, right? Wrong. When people no longer see those who are not aligned with them as people, it becomes very easy for them to commit atrocities against them. Let's examine this concept on a smaller scale to get a look at it though. Dead by Daylight is an asymmetrical horror game in which 4 players take up the role of survivors and 1 player is the killer. The survivors must repair 5 generators so that they may open the exit door and escape. The killer's job is to, in a rather self-explanatory fashion, kill them before they can do so. Now, many problems that this game faces stem from the blatantly inept developers. It brings me no joy to call them such, but it is simple truth. The numerous bugs, exploits, and oversights that have plagued the game for years have been well documented by other channels on this site, but it leads to the game being monstrously unbalanced. While the survivor characters all function in the exact same way, the killers all have different powers at their disposal, but the developers often implement buffs or nerfs that go way too far, making the experience miserable for weaker killers, or for survivors facing off against an overtuned one. But this isn't where the problems stop. The game has a massive skill gap between most players. Experienced survivors can make the killers chase them for an extended period of time, during which several generators can be repaired. If the other survivors plant themselves on generators while one is chased, then killers will have little opportunity to fulfill their role. As the developers refuse to balance their game properly, it has soured the perception of survivor players and killer players against each other. Survivors will abuse the many mechanics that the developers have given to them to deliberately make the killer's experience terrible, such as sabotaging the hooks they need to place survivors on, following killers who are chasing someone to blind them with flashlights, using many overtuned perks such as Head On or Boil Over, and refusing to leave at the exit gate after the doors have been opened just to taunt the killer. Similarly, killers will also go out of their way to make the survivors have a bad time, such as tunneling, where the killer focuses on one player to kill them as quickly as possible, and thus they cannot play the game, or slugging, where they leave survivors in a downed state where they can only crawl slowly along the ground and cannot perform other actions. Both sides, by and large, have stopped seeing the other as people, and as such use this lack of logic to justify acting in a despicable manner. It even spills over into the post-game chat, with both sides hurling insults and telling the other to off themselves for the crime of playing the game. They've fallen into the us versus them mindset. This is not healthy for any group. This only gets worse when it happens on a bigger scale in the real world. Needless to say, with what happened earlier this month, the us versus them was on full display. People were celebrating the taking of a life. Not the life of, say, a leader of a nation that was instigating war. Not a Hitler or Stalin or someone like that. Charlie Kirk was a debater. Whether you agree with him or not is irrelevant. To celebrate someone's demise simply because they do not agree with you is unacceptable. If one does so, it shows that they cannot defend their stance and must lash out with violence. It would be like flipping the board and storming out when you realize you're going to lose a game of Monopoly. Because, unfortunately, monsters in reality are not giant creatures of fang and claw that we can fight face to face with swords and guns. Monsters in our world wear human skin. That's evidenced enough by the fact that people like Hassan Piker and Destiny exist. If you don't know who they are, I envy you. I wish I didn't. Those two regularly screech for the death of those that do not support them in a public forum. And for some reason, the FBI has done nothing to them. Those like them like to hide under the concept of free speech. But free speech only applies to peaceable actions. Calling for the cessation of someone's life just because you cannot browbeat them into lockstep with you is not peaceable. Their ilk revels in death. It doesn't matter whom. I try to remain as apolitical as possible, as I find both sides grow more extreme with each passing year. But I must call out evil when I see it. There are many who advocate for violence instead of debate. Even politicians, who are supposed to uphold the decorum that such an office entails. That is unacceptable. They are supposed to be the best of us. But these days, they only exacerbate the worst. I hope that these individuals grow a conscience, not for my sake, but for theirs. Should the remorse for what they have done not still their hearts, then they could strive to be a good person instead of a vile abomination. But that is a hope, not an expectation. I even watched Shoe-on-Head's video that came out the other day. I have very mixed opinions on her, as I find that one minute she'll say something that makes a great deal of sense, only to then make a sharp turn and say something that leaves me questioning how she reached such a conclusion. Do not mistake me, I bear her no ill will at all. I simply cannot understand how she reaches a few of her conclusions. I wish her well, in fact. I hope her child grows up strong and healthy. But seeing her, and many others I might add, either reduced to tears or almost to it, is heartbreaking. Because a good person doesn't wish for the demise of someone just because they have a disagreement. There are people that I have no respect for at all, but I do not wish for them to meet their ends. I don't seek them out to antagonize them. To do so would be despicable. But these others will not hesitate to use buzzwords to declare someone, say, a fascist or a bigot or a racist for the sole purpose of dehumanizing them, so that they can inflict misdeeds upon them. It's led to these words having no meaning anymore. This is no way for any civilization to function. To have a civilization, it requires the populace to be civil. It's in the name. Personally, I enjoy having a discussion with those who have a different stance than I do. Note that I said discussion, not argument. As soon as someone begins raising their voice and arguing, they are no longer receptive to information, and only want to make their point heard, and thus they should be cut off. Discussion and debate is how you uncover the truth. I have both learned and given information through this method. That's how you discover what you believe and strengthen it. Because if you're presented with information that you can't reconcile, then you must reassess your stance. But these monsters in human form cannot handle such a thing. The second one falls out of line with their ideology, then they are cannibalized. Any who do not share it from the start are enemies that must be destroyed. Civilization cannot stand on such ground. Us versus them is out of control these days. You can even see it in something as simple as dating, where you do not need to go far to hear something like, "All men are this," All women are that. In a time where we should theoretically be more connected than ever, thanks to near-instant communication worldwide, people instead have elected to be at each other's throats. So I beseech you, as an individual, to do what you can. You don't have to like everyone. You don't even need to respect them. But don't jump the gun and escalate things. Be better than that. That's not to say that you should tolerate everything, but there is a right way to go about things, and a wrong way. Don't give in to us versus them, because you can't coexist with those who wish for the demise of others for simple disagreements. You will never agree with everyone 100% of the time. We're all stuck on this rock orbiting the star we call the sun. The least we can do is try not to go out of our way to make things worse for everyone. But what do you think of this matter? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, leave a like on this video if you're so inclined, and subscribe to see more. I won't do my usual outro for this video, as I feel like it would be in poor taste on this matter, but I will say this. I wish you well. Stay safe out there. There are evil people wandering around who have no regard for life. Take care, and may you conquer your troubles.